But so, yeah, I guess we could just move on to talking about Eden Zero from Hiro Mashima, which just debuted over this past week, and at least at the time of this recording. So, yeah, Sid, do you want to talk a little bit about what Eden Zero is actually about?
Eden Zero is about this kid named Shiki who, I don't know how he was abandoned on this, like, island of robots, but essentially he was taken in by the Demon Lord, or at least the robot who plays the Demon Lord on this amusement park island full of robots. And so he's just raised by the robots in this kingdom called the Grand Bell Kingdom. And then one day, another human traveler comes to the island named Rebecca with her cat in tow, Happy, from Fairy Tale, who I guess is here now in this series too. It is not enough to have Plu be in every series. Now Happy must be too. But anyway, Rebecca comes here because she wants to find like a cool place to like film basically YouTube videos so that her YouTube channel can have 1 million subscribers and she'll be super popular and stuff. So that's her goal. And then eventually there's like she encounters like this giant robot cat thing that I guess is breaking down or something. And then that's how she meets Shiki. And then Shiki has not seen another human before, so there's hijinks. It's very much like Goku meeting Bulma-esque. Oh, you're a woman? I don't know what a woman is. I've never seen another human being before. And then, basically, you know, she's a little creeped out by him at first, understandably. But then she kind of, very suddenly, it kind of warms up to him when he tells her that he's friends with all the robots. It's like a very awkward transition because there's this panel of her looking very, like, creeped out and like, oh, you know all each other? And then he just says, oh, they're my friends. And then she has a smile on her face on the next page. It's like, okay. That was quick. You sure got over that quickly. Anyway, basically, what happens later is that, the king, the robot that plays the king is informed that Rebecca's here. And so the king leads the robots to kidnap Rebecca and tie her and Happy up on like a pole so they can burn them at the stake because their plan is we are waited for human travelers to come here so we can steal their ship and go off for the outside world because we are tired of being slaves to humans and tools just for their amusement. And they claim like a virus has made them change their attitude on that and stuff. Then basically Shiki is like, but why? Why are you doing that? We're friends. But they're like, no, we can't be friends with humans. Humans are our enemy.
Humans bad.
Yeah. So then Shiki has to, fight to save Rebecca. And then basically he awakens like his special power that, gives him the strength to fight back against the robots and, take Rebecca and just get away. The power is called Ether Gear, which is referred to as gear that works on his body's ether flow, reconfiguring it to give him new power, a power from the Dark Ages. So there's a lot of mystery behind this power. We don't really know, like, all the specific details of how it works yet, but it, like, gives him, like, these patterns on his arms and stuff. Like, he has circle kind of things over his knuckles, and that there's, like, these weird lines going up his arms. Anyway, he can, like, really jump around. He is more acrobatic and stuff, and he, like, beats down the Robot King, and then they all, like, get on Rebecca's ship, and they leave to space. Because it turns out the kingdom is not just an island on Earth or anything. This is like an entire planet that is just this kingdom, that is just this island. And that is kind of basically how planets are in this universe. It's like they're these little floating islands. And so they're traveling around in the Sakura cosmos, where there's like floating Sakura petal-shaped stars swirling around everywhere. And it's a very beautiful kind of like looking image of space. And so now they're traveling to different planets, Shiki and Rebecca and Happy. And Shiki's goal is to make 100 friends, because he's lost all his friends on the island. So now he's going to go and meet new people and make 100 friends. And then the very sad, dramatic twist that was very good is that it turns out this was the plan of the robots all along. They were waiting for another human to come so that they could make Shiki go with her out into the stars, because the robots are basically dying out because, they're rusting, they're losing their, energy supply. So before they, shut down for good, they wanted to make sure Shiki left the planet so he could go off on his own and, find new friends and stuff. And so it's very sad. They basically all shut down and power down, and I guess they die. And yeah, it's very sad. They put on this act because they're all performer robots. That's their job. So this was their big performance to play the part of evil human hating robots in order to make Shiki leave the planet. But even though Shiki doesn't know all this, he's still reflecting on all his good times he had with the robots. And he's they were my friends. Thank you so much for being there for me. I was never alone. And so that's how the chapter ends, basically. And, the journey just has begun for the man whose name will be remembered throughout the universe.
While we're on that part of the chapter, I really like that gag where, he yells out to his robot friends and then he quickly realizes, oh wait, they can't hear me.
Can I break the window? And Rebecca's no!
I actually thought that was kind of funny. So I guess, I kind of want to go first as far as, first impressions go, because, I've talked about on the show before, about, because I think it's safe to assume that we both either just kind of grew tired of or got kind of burnt out on Fairy Tail at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And, just the long and short of it, I really liked Fairy Tail at first, but then, at some point I just kind of, started getting tired of it, and I just thought it got kind of, predictable and repetitive a little bit, and basically the time skip just kind of killed whatever, interest I had in reading the rest of it. So I haven't really, been keeping up with Mashima's works since then, which is a shame because, I really loved Rave Master, or Groove Adventure Rave, whatever you want to call it, which at some point, that's something I do want to reread and talk about on the show, because I remember reading Rave Master when I was still in high school. My high school library had all of it, and I really loved that series and thought it was a really great adventure series. So, I kind of go back and forth on Mashima's works. Most of the time I think he's really capable of a lot of different things, and I think he has a lot of talent, but I was actually talking with Maxie about this on Twitter the other day, in that I have this fear of Mashima where he's going to become one of those people in my mind that, yeah, they have a lot of talent, but they just kind of stick with what they know, their fans want, and basically, what'll make him the most money. Basically, the kind of person I put people like Seth MacFarlane in the category of, except the difference is I think Mashima has more talent than Seth MacFarlane in particular. But, I mean, they both work in different mediums, so I guess that doesn't really correlate. But my point still stands. That's just kind of how I see it. So, I was excited about Eden Zero because it's something that isn't Fairy Tail. I just got so tired of Fairy Tail at some point that, anything different from Mashima just looks so much more interesting in comparison to me. And, before I read the first chapter, what was it? The cover of that issue of Shonen Magazine got leaked online, and, you have, the main characters on the front cover. And it basically just, to me, it just looked like a cover image of, Fairy Tail again. I fell into this trap of being kind of disappointed in how similar all the main characters looked, especially with having Happy there, and how much Rebecca looks like Lucy. And I was a bit disappointed at first because it's oh man, I hope this doesn't just turn into a Fairy Tail knockoff thing where it's oh, let's just reuse all the same character designs. And I know Mashima has done that same thing before, but he's never really just reused or done similar main character designs, which is why I've always been just kind of okay with it. But I don't know. So, but basically my point is that I was kind of disappointed in that at first, but actually reading the first chapter of Eden Zero, I'm mixed about it, because I feel as far as it's the relationships between the characters are concerned, especially, Sid, you brought it up with, how Rebecca kind of like quickly warms up to Shiki. Like, I felt like that was a little, I felt like that was a bit quick, and the themes of friendship are a little derivative, in my opinion. But, there's still so much about this first chapter that like actually has me excited to read more. Like, I really think the last couple of pages really kind of sold me on maybe at least like checking this out every once in a while to kind of like check up with it. Like, I did not expect the series to take place in space at all. I thought that was a very neat surprise, and I actually really do like that twist in the end where it's like, oh, well, the robots weren't actually evil. They were actually just trying to help Shiki basically get out into the world and to make friends and explore other places. Because that was something that, the Demon Lord kind of wanted for Shiki in the beginning was, he encouraged Shiki as a child to basically go out and make friends. And so, I thought like those elements I thought were really strong. So, and I think those elements really keep this from being just a complete, like, oh, it's just Mashima doing what he does, like it keeps it interesting for me personally.
Yeah. I guess my expectation for the series, if I want to start there, was that I just didn't know what to think of it. I mean, like what others had kind of pointed out from the preview image, like there were a lot of character designs that seemed just so similar to fairy tale character designs that it was like, like, is he just going to reuse a bunch of the characters again for this series? So I didn't really know what to think about it. Like, we didn't really have much of a synopsis to go off of. So reading the first chapter, I was trying to figure out what direction it was going. And I think that while reading the chapter, my opinion of it definitely shifted. Because it started out being, well, I'm not really sold on this idea. This seems like, oh, this is kind of like your gender flipping kind of fairy. No, you're not really doing that. It's just that now the female protagonist is the one with happy at the beginning. Essentially. But like the meeting between her and Shiki is like pretty similar to Lucy and Atsu. And in some respects, it seemed the dynamic was a little too similar. So I was kind of like thinking about all the similarities. But then by the time we got into the second half of the chapter, and especially the ending, and like the message of the chapter was ringing forward, then I was like, okay, now I'm really into this. I really like what he set up here, because there's a really good heart to this first chapter in Shiki understanding like what true friendship is, and like also kind of like, standing up to protect us. He has to fight against basically his family to protect his new friend, and then have to make a decision to leave them behind in order to explore the world and, make new friends. So that was a really good idea. And what I was like worried about, like reading the first chapter, was okay, so these robots are just like be suddenly evil now because of a virus. But I really thought it was clever that, okay, these are performing robots. They've known for a long time that Shiki as a human will outlive them because they are going to break down at some point, and so they are desperate to like help him go off into the world so he can thrive without them and make new friends to be his support network when they're gone, to carry on the wishes of like Shiki's surrogate father, the Demon King especially, And it's kind of set up, like, in the opening color pages, where there's this conversation between Shiki, the Demon King, and Michael, like, kind of the main robot friend Shiki has, or at least is presented as his main friend during the chapter, who's, like, kind of listening to what the Demon Lord is saying to Shiki, and is like, So, like, they're thinking about what he's saying, like, how to best help Shiki, like, in the future. So that's kind of hinted at before the big twist in the middle of the chapter and then at the end of the chapter. And so it's like a very well executed story in terms of that. It's like, there's nothing that seems like it comes out of nowhere in terms of like how the story of this first chapter develops. And I think that it leaves off on this really like meaningful note, because they do all shut down, and like presumably like the robots, they could like reboot them at some point if they ever return to the Grand Bell Kingdom, maybe. But like essentially like they did all like use their last time on Earth to help Shiki, like, go off into the world so he wouldn't be alone anymore. And that, like, was, really touching. It pulled at the heartstrings, and yeah, I really fell for it. And I think that, the fact that even Shiki does not even know all this, that he doesn't know that, they were pretending to hate him. He doesn't even guess that, but he's just thinking about, the times he spent with them and how he treasures how he treasures them as a family, and so he still thanks them, even though at the end, they said that he is their enemy. And so it's like, that strong familial bond, like, carries through. Like, I really enjoy that, and now I kind of am interested in seeing, like, him make those 100 friends. Like, friendship as a concept was overplayed in Fairy Tail, but I don't dislike friendship as an idea, because I do think it's, like, a very, powerful and moving concept. I do appreciate it as a concept and as a, just fact of life in general.
As a motivator, I guess?
Well, yeah, I mean, the thing with how it was used in Fairy Tail as a motivator is that it was the solution for most of the conflicts, or not just that it was a solution for many conflicts, but that it would seem like an out-of-nowhere easy solution for many conflicts. Like, there's this moment, like, at the end of the tournament arc, like the Grand Magic Games or whatever, where it's like Fairy Tail's solidarity, like, convinces a rogue, I think, is the person they're fighting, to, like, just stand down, to just give up on fighting, because it's like, oh no, their friendship and their strength, even though that they have worn themselves out fighting other guys, and I'm at full power, I cannot beat them. Oh, it's like, okay, come on, that's easy and convenient. But, like, the having friendship as a motivator for Shiki, just as a conceptual thematic idea being presented, straight on right in this first chapter, is something that is going to be, like, the core of the series. That works for me, and that is, like, compelling to me. So, like, if friendship comes here as a motivator to give Shiki the strength, to win battles, to me that seems like, okay, that's the ethos of his character. That will work, provided it isn't, like, an easy last hour solution that, like, diffuses the tension in what should be a really dramatic moment.
I'll give you this. Like, I said earlier that I thought that the themes of friendship, I thought, were a bit derivative in parts in the first chapter. But honestly, like, thinking back, like, I think you make a very good case for, like, how well it's used in, like, the first chapter of this series compared to, like you said, how it's used in Fairy Tail to basically just, like, force, like, some kind of resolution, and, like, how cheesy it kind of comes off. Like, I think one of the things that, like, really set me off near the end of, like, what is it, the S rank war arc? I don't even remember what it's called. When they're on the island and they're, like, fighting each other.
Yeah, the Tenro Island arc.
Yeah, and there's a moment in particular where, like, whatever the dragon's name is, comes out of nowhere, and they're...
Technologia?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and they get in the circle, and they're all holding hands,
like that...
and then somehow that well, it wasn't, like, that alone, I guess, that protected them, because Mavis is on the island. She's like,
well, yeah, but my point being that, like, stuff like that, just, like, that is just, I don't know, like, I'm fine with cheesy stuff, but, like, that was just kind of a level of cheese that, like, I just couldn't really get behind. I just couldn't take seriously at all. Just thought was, like, really, like, silly in, like, the worst way, and just, like, really took me out of it. Like, oh yeah, let's just, it just doesn't really feel genuine to me. Like, oh yeah, let's all hold hands in a circle before we're all blasted off, and it'll protect us, oh, whatever. Like, so, yeah.
I guess the problem to me is just it didn't feel meaningful.
Not at all,
enough, because there are no consequences to that. Like, nothing really comes out of that. Like, it's a moment, it's an image, but it doesn't really say anything about the relationship between the characters in a profound way, and it doesn't, like, affect things that happen later, because it's not like they did anything necessarily. It's not like them getting that circle protected them, from what I remember. I'm pretty sure it was just the fact that Mavis was there, and she, strong, so she protected them basically with her whatever force field thing, and then she kept them safe for like 7 years for no reason, for a time skip that did not amount to anything.
Yeah,
yeah, it was just like the context of everything that happened involving that scene was just not well done at all. In this case, the context for like all the moments inspired by friendship works because it's set up well and it follows through well and it like speaks well of the characters and their relationships with each other. Like the moment where Rebecca is like, very upset that all Shiki's friends are turning on him, and she's like yelling and is like, how could you do this? Like just yesterday you were all happy together. Shiki said everyone here was his friend. How can you be so cruel? You can be a friend with anyone, doesn't matter, you're human or machine. It's like, and she's shedding tears for Shiki, this guy that she met yesterday, and like Shiki is reflecting on, what the Demon King told him is like, if you have a friend who shed tears for you, you better treasure that friend for your whole life. So it like speaks to both, Rebecca here is like being a very selfless and empathetic character because she like cares about Shiki, who she only just met, but she, understands and respects like his relationship with all the people here on the Granville Kingdom, and she, feels his pain at the fact that they are turning on him. And so the fact that Shiki recognizes that, Rebecca is someone who cares about him even though, they have just met and barely know each other. But that's like a good foundation for a friendship if like you have someone who's like willing to, fight on your behalf or willing to speak, defend someone else just because they are, that good a person and that caring a person. And then, like, the fact that Rebecca is, stands up for him and, like, is crying on his behalf and is, like, being so defensive of him and stuff. It's, like, supportive of him. Like, that's what gives him the strength to, just fight back and, gives him something, to protect because now he has, like, a new friend. He might have lost, like, all his friends here. But now he has someone to protect. He has another friend, another relationship to fight for. And so that's like what awakens his power. And so it all works for me in terms of like how everything goes down and why everything goes down. Cause like it makes sense for the characters to be like this. Like I can buy it.
Yeah, it wasn't just used as like a Deus Ex Machina. Like it wasn't Fairy Tail. Like this actually felt like it made sense and it actually sort of felt genuine.
Like, I thought it was weird that, again, I still think it's weird that Rebecca, like, changes her opinion of Shiki so fast.
Yeah.
But because of the kind of person she is, and the fact that she is very empathetic, and she is generally pretty friendly, it still works to me. Like, it wasn't like she spent the first half of the chapter, like, hating Shiki. She just thought he was like weird, and then she realized, I guess he's just a guy here. He's pretty cool. He's pretty sweet. He's just a good kid. So it's like, yeah, it works. Like I get why she would feel so bad for him after understanding and knowing his situation.
Yeah, like I said, I wasn't really feeling it up until like, basically the main conflict kind of resolved itself and they actually left the island, and then that's when everything kind of started to make sense.
Yeah, like it really was like the revelation that the robots were all pretending and they were doing this to help Shiki go off into the world. And so he wouldn't be lonely when they're all gone. Like it was really that revelation that like put everything in the chapter into context and like, sold it, like, completely. Because, like, up until that point, it was fine, but, like, it was just that act of selflessness on the part of those robot characters and their sacrifice that really just sold it home.
Yeah, I think that's what kind of sold it for me, too, especially when, like, you have Michael's final words where he's like, if I knew this was gonna hurt and if I knew this was gonna be lonely, like, I wish I never had a heart. Like, that final panel where, like, just a smiling robot just trembling. Like, there's just something about that actually, like, I didn't, like, start sobbing for 10 minutes or anything, but, like, that still kind of, like, broke my heart a little bit.
Yeah, great follows through on a idea that was well developed. Like, at the beginning of the chapter, Michael's saying, oh, we're robots. We don't have hearts. But we see throughout the chapter that they are very observant of Shiki. Like how they talk about him, that they really love him. And then, so now that he's left them and like they will never see him again, they do feel incredibly sad. And Michael especially, because he was probably the closest to Shiki as we had seen through the chapter. So, yeah, it's really powerful, emotional moment that felt earned. And the problem with Fairy Tail is that there were a lot of emotional moments that did not feel earned. But in this first chapter, like, I think everything was executed incredibly well.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, I thought it was executed well, at least compared to Fairy Tail.
Yeah. I mean, especially comparing this to Fairy Tail's first chapter, I think this is actually much stronger, because I reread Fairy Tail's first chapter, and there's not a really good, strong thematic idea. There's not a good, strong foundation for the story in the first chapter of Fairy Tail. Like, it's basically, oh, Natsu is strong, and this other guy is an imposter, so he is bad. And Fairy Tail is a place where you can have a lot of fun, I guess.
Yeah, that's my problem with Fairy Tail looking back on it, is that, like, especially, like, comparing it to, like, this and Rave Master, of all things, that, like, Eden Zero and Rave Master felt like they had a focus. Fairy Tail does not feel like it has a focus. I mean, there is that stuff in Fairy Tail where, like, Natsu wants to find his dragon dad or whatever, and that could have made for a compelling story. I mean, I don't know how that turned out in Fairy Tail, and honestly, I don't really care at the moment. But
well, he did find him, although, like, how everything worked out, it turns out he was not very far to begin with. I won't spoil it, since I'm sure we'll read Fairy Tail for the show at some point, so I want you to keep some spoilers out of your head. But yeah, I think, like, again, in comparing the first chapters, like, what this series does so well is that it has a clear idea, and it really develops that idea for its protagonist in terms of what his goal is and what he cares about. And this chapter is all about what this character cares about and how that inspires him to go off on his journey. In the first chapter of Fairy Tail, we get to hear about Natsu's goal. We don't get to see why that is his goal. Like, what is inspiring him to go off on his journey? And really, what is he all about? Like, he just shows up to fight this imposter. Like, he's looking for Igneo. And so then he runs across this guy who's impersonating him. It's like, it doesn't have anything to do with that, to do with his goal. It just ends up being, oh, you're impersonating me. You're not a real Fairy Tail member because you're a bad guy. Again, there's just not a clear, like, thematic idea how it relates to the protagonist's goal and what he cares about at all in the first chapter of Fairy Tail. But Eden Zero succeeds at that. So it's like a much better told story when comparing the first chapters of those two series.
No, yeah, this was a good, this was, like, if this were a one-shot, it would be a very, very well executed one-shot as far as, like, cause this feels like this feels like it could be its own self-contained story, and I would honestly be fine with it.
Yeah. I think that's what you want out of a good first chapter, is that you want a story that feels self-contained and emotionally satisfying, but also has the potential to go on longer and continue to expand upon the ideas it presents. And I think that this first chapter did that extremely well.
Yeah, so I thought the first chapter was fun, and I agree with Sid. It was executed well. Now we'll just have to see how the rest of it pans out. And honestly, I think I would consider, like, trying to keep up with this. I think I'm gonna, this is gonna sound a lot harsher than I want it to, so forgive me, but I think I'm ready to give Mashima another chance. I think I'm ready to accept him back in my life again.
Yeah, I mean, I will keep up with this for sure. Like, I try to keep up with as many series as possible. I mean, the fact that this isn't in Jump just hurts it a little bit, because sometimes I forget to read the Crunchyroll manga, so
I
fall
understand
behind on
that.
it.
Yeah.
But I do want to keep up with this, because I thought this first chapter was extremely well done, and I think it has a lot of potential. And I'm behind his goal of making 100 friends, so I want to see how that develops. See, I care about the goal. I don't see with the first chapter of Fairy Tail, I reread it and I'm like, wait a minute, why do I care why Natsu finds Igneal? Like, I don't know his relationship with Igneal. Like, the chapter doesn't start up with a flashback of Natsu with Igneal. No, the chapter starts with just Siegfried Jalal talking about Fairy Tail for some reason, because I guess, like, he's gonna be an antagonist at some point and keep showing up, but, like, it doesn't have anything to do with anything that happens in the rest of the chapter, and the main focus of the chapter, to help develop the characters at all. Like, so, again, I just didn't think the idea, like, the first chapter of Fairy Tail set up and developed its ideas very well at all.
No, yeah, that's something I really missed from Mashima, is just, like I said, the key word here is focus. That was something I thought he had in Rave, something that I really only just recently, within like the past year or two, realized that he doesn't really have in Fairy Tail, and that's part of the reason why I fell out of it eventually. But it seems like there's a focus here in Eden Zero. So I'm more compelled to follow through with the rest of the story, at least for now.
Yeah, and it seems like he has a lot of ideas for the series if the color page is anything to go by, because there's a lot of characters on there, so it seems he probably has a lot of directions or a lot of ideas for this story already.
Like, just a shonen manga that takes place in space already has my attention, because I've read certain series where like things just escalate so far that like my go-to like joke is like, oh, this series is totally going to go into space at some point. Like, I felt the same way with One Piece. I felt the same way about Toriko. So it's like, so I guess just as far as me personally goes, like, I just find it funny that I'm finally getting to read a shonen manga that just kind of like hits the ground running as far as that goes.
Yeah, I'm thinking aesthetically it's like a really cool choice, like these floating islands in space and stuff. I think that is really cool.
And also, I was gonna make the joke earlier, but I just love how like you could tell like how far shonen manga has come, where it's like, you know, like, forget wanting to be the Hokage, forget wanting to be the Pirate King. I just want 1 million subscribers on YouTube.
That is pretty great. Like, I hope Mikosa got her goal. She wants to have 1 million subscribers on YouTube. It's very fun, small goal, but it's pretty fun.
Like, it's very like modern, but like, it's kind of cute. Like, I kind of like that.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll see her journey to become one of the best YouTubers in this world, I guess. Forget 1 million subscribers, she'll get 10 million. She'll be the number one. That's gonna be her goal, ultimately. She'll
beat up PewDiePie.
Yeah, whoever the equivalent of PewDiePie is in this series.
I wonder if she's gonna get to meet like other like famous YouTubers or something. Not necessarily like representative like actual famous YouTubers, just like famous YouTubers within like, I guess, outer space. Like, this is the more I say this out loud, the more the more ridiculous I kind of find it, but like, I'm kind of all for it.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, I think I feel comfortable recommending this.
Oh yeah, I think that this is a very solid beginning for a new series, to have a very solid foundation. As someone who was very frustrated towards Fairy Tail and found a lot of Mashima's writing choices in that series to be very poorly executed and followed through upon, I think that this first chapter already has a much better foundation than Fairy Tail had in terms of a premise. So, hopefully that is a good sign of how the story will develop going forward, and it possibly continuing to maintain like this level of quality.
Yeah, I'm holding out hope that Mashima can follow through with at least a better executed series. But yeah, if you want to read Eden Zero, the first chapter is available on Crunchyroll. I think you have to have a subscription to read it. But honestly, if you're not subscribed to Crunchyroll already, I mean, you should be, because I think they've been doing good things to kind of revamp their manga section. Unfortunately, they did have to kind of clean up a few series, and there are certain series that you used to be able to read, like Princess Jellyfish and The Silent Voice, that you can't really read all of on there anymore, unfortunately. But they have
you can't read them at all on there anymore. They just took them out
really?
entirely.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Okay. But, they do have a lot of really neat stuff from Kodansha on there that, like, I would like to get to at some point, especially, like, To Your Eternity. I really need to catch up on that at some point. But, yeah, so, I mean, if you have a subscription to Crunchyroll, definitely read it on there, or you can buy chapters of Eden Zero on both Comixology and Kindle, so it is very readily available if you want to read it. And I'm sure Kodansha will come out with volume releases of this at some point. And yeah, so if you want to support Hiro Mashima and you want to support Eden Zero, there are ways to do it. And we'll leave links in the show notes as to like where you can read it and whatnot. So yeah, I would definitely say this is worth checking out. But I think that about does it for the show.
Yeah, I think it does. It was a short show this week. When it's finally edited, it'll be like an hour and a half. Under that, maybe?
Yeah, about that,
Nice to have shorter episodes. It rarely happens these days, but we've kind of gotten like 2 in a row now. So hey.
Yeah, so there you go. I'm all for shorter episodes personally. Less work on me.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, I think this was a good episode. Hopefully, Sid, you mentioned you're gonna be at Anime Expo along with V-Lord. So, if you guys are listening to this saying you want to say hi or something, I'm sure you can, follow Sid. I'm sure he'll probably tweet every once in a while about what he's doing at Anime Expo if you want to say hi. And speaking of Sid, where can the good people follow you?
You can follow me at Lone Ramayasha on Twitter and as Lone Ramayasha on any other social network that I'm on or platform that I'm on, like Animation Revelation or AniList and the like. You can also read my manga reviews on all-comic.com, as I do very infrequently, but try to do a little more so, get back in the swing of doing them more regularly.
But no, yeah, so go ahead and follow Sid. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can follow me at SniperKing323. If I'm reading something, I'm usually talking about it. And that's pretty much it. I actually have a list of my ongoing manga threads that I have way too many of, that I didn't realize I had so many of. And I have a pinned tweet there. You can find it from there. And you can also listen to my other podcasts, such as Life Lessons, the Gintama Manga Cast, over at gintalifalessons.wordpress.com, as well as One Podcast Prevails at onepodcastprevails.com, where I talk about Detective Conan / Case Closed with my good friend Doctor from the Ass Backwards Anime Podcast. But as for All Comic and the podcast, you can find more of our podcasts, that's the Manga Mavericks podcast and whatever side podcast we put up, over at all-comic.com. That's where we put every episode first. You can also follow us on facebook.com/all.comic or on twitter.com/allcomic_. But if you just want to follow Manga Mavericks specifically and get all the latest updates on new episodes and whatnot, you want to follow us at manga_mavericks, as well as mangamavericks.tumblr.com, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/mangamavericks, where I'm sure our review of Eden Zero will probably be up at some point. You can also email us anything at mangamavericks@gmail.com. What did you think of Eden Zero? What do you think of Hiro Mashima's works in general? What are you reading in general? Just send us anything about what you're reading, what you think of the podcast in an email. Again, over at mangamavericks@gmail.com, and we will read it on the show. But the most important thing, guys, is that you subscribe, rate, and review us on Apple Podcasts, the artist formerly known as iTunes. Yeah, that really helps the visibility of our podcast and just helps us get out there in general. And so I think that's going to be about it. This has been episode 52 of the Manga Mavericks podcast on allcomic.com, and we will see you guys next time for episode 53. Bye, guys.
Sayonara.